So hello, everybody. My name is Glenn Malagary. I am a senior manager in the Huron's Enterprise Solution Analytics practice. I've been working with clients undertaking business transformations for over 20 years now. For this engagement, I was the overall engagement lead and the program architect for the Tallgrass Business Transformation Initiative. With me today is Andy Otterman, the Director of IT Applications for Tallgrass Energy. Andy, would you please introduce yourself to the attendees before we get into our discussion?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Glenn. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andy Otterman, as Glenn mentioned, Director of our IT Applications team. My team supports our enterprise applications, everything from our order-to-cash billing, as well as our ERP platform. We've got a development team as well as a data and analytics organization here at Tallgrass Energy. Just by way of introducing the company as well, for those who may not know, Tallgrass is a mid-sized, midstream oil and gas player. We are shippers, kind of logistics management for energy solutions across the middle of the continental U.S. Looking forward to chatting, Glenn.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate that. So I want to talk about your transformation. You began this during a challenging time. Can you kind of enlighten the group of what some of the drivers were for the change and some of the challenges you faced?
Yeah, absolutely. So we began really exploring this opportunity back in the early spring of 2019. Some of the challenges that we were facing were an application ecosystem of about 15 distinct apps to support our core financials, project management, and procurement organizations. An ecosystem like that required several dozen integrations, and my team as an IT organization primarily spent most of our time really supporting those integrations. Inevitably, one of them would fail to work at a critical time, and so the team was jumping on and firefighting problem solving as opposed to capability enablement, which is really not the right place where we wanted to be engaging with our business partners as an IT organization. I think in addition to that, kind of thinking more about the enterprise capability, we identified several different challenges or opportunities, anything from kind of time to onboard a new acquisition. Our M&A onboarding cycle was measured in months as opposed to days and weeks. Further, from a procurement perspective, we struggled with getting insight into some of our category spend. It was easy to understand spend by vendor, but kind of looking horizontally across multiple different providers, that was a real challenge. So for us, it was really about trying to find the right platform that we could put in place that was viable at scale, but also sustainable, and that the team could support to enable the right business capabilities to transform the organization going forward.
So speaking of challenges, we did kick off the transformation project on April 15th of 2020, almost exactly 1 month after everyone was sent home due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about how that affected the project?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it goes without saying that it was a very volatile time, I think, in most of our lives. And, as the dust was settling from everyone leaving the office, trying to figure out how to take care of family, loved ones, making sure that the kids were taken care of as they're being sent home from school, and also trying to maintain a sense of normalcy with jobs. We took on this project, and I think it took a lot of kind of coordination, communication, and people centricity to begin with. One of the things, Glenn, you and I had spoke about when we began this assessment back in 2019 was that this is a people project followed by a process project followed by technology is really a distant third. And I think that really was true in terms of the execution. We had the right support and I think some pretty brave leadership from our senior executive team, which was great. And it was really about just making sure we were communicating as clearly and as consistently as we possibly could to the project team.
Great, thanks. And you did mention we've been working together for quite some time now. Can you talk about how you came to select Huron as the business partner for your digital transformation?
Yeah, most definitely. So I mentioned Tallgrass is a midstream oil and gas organization. Oil and gas is a very highly regulated business. We have regulatory bodies informing our operations from a federal, state, county, and sometimes in some situations township level. So there's a lot of requirements, I think, from a business partner to step in and help out a company like Tallgrass through this transformation, who can come in and already be speaking at the level that my business partners do. Understanding the regulatory nuances, understanding traditional joint venture structures that exist for companies like ours with heavily capital intensive investments. Also, looking for an organization that was really going to come in and challenge us. Certainly we had a perspective on how things could or should be done based upon the way we'd done them the previous 6 or 7 years on our legacy platforms, but just taking the same business process and trying to mold it into, or having the technology mold to the business process when you're going through this type of change was, in our opinion, not the right way to approach it. And so we found with Huron both a partner who knew our industry, would challenge us, and then really gelled well, I think, culturally with the team, and we were successful based on all three of those points.
Great, thanks for that. And back to some of the different topics from the challenges, we had some overall goals for the initiative here. Can you tell us a little bit about the overall goal for the company when discussing aligning data and information across the various lines of business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned one of them a few minutes ago in terms of kind of spend analysis, spend analytics. Again, an organization like ours, that's fairly capital intensive when it relates to projects, through to kind of items that are purchased across the organization, because we do have a footprint across 12 states. Inevitably, you're purchasing the same types of materials at various field locations. There's really an opportunity to kind of go after an analysis effort to identify where the kind of repeatable, optimizable spend exists, and then find ways to enable those procurement activities through more efficient processes. So rather than having someone go out and procure some additional widgets, nuts and bolts, first aid kit items, let's offer a solution for people to just buy that in an Amazon-like fashion through a punch-out catalog. When you think about procuring on a somewhat limited basis, but high dollar cost items for putting more pipe into the ground, there's certainly an opportunity to think about optimizing spend that way, whether that's through anonymous auctions or just overall kind of best practice spend optimization. So that was certainly one opportunity. Another opportunity that we identified, and I kind of referenced this before in terms of our previous technology ecosystem, is we had 4 logically separate ERP environments in our legacy system, where master data was maintained for our customers uniquely across each line of business. And that really created a very difficult situation for our business partners to be able to, at an enterprise level, kind of analyze the relationship that we have with any particular customer against those lines of business. So now, with having an integrated platform type of solution, we've got the right data model in place such that we can go and really start to take a much more customer-centric approach, more so than we've been able to do to date, and really dive into more of the details on the relationships we have with our customers and where there's opportunities to serve them better.
Great. Several folks listening in today are either going through this journey or planning on going through a digital transformation with their own companies and organizations. From your experience and what we've gone through over the past couple of years, what would you offer as advice to those individuals for things to either prepare for, look out for, or to make sure they actually focus on?
Yeah, great question. So Two things really popped in mind. The first is, as I mentioned, we've been working together since 2019. The first phase of our engagement was an assessment phase. We spent about 3 months over the summer of 19 really diving into an analysis on, tell me how you do it today. Tell me where the pain points are. What do you want to do that you can't do today? And how might we look at executing this process or delivering this capability or enabling the insight in the future? So we came out of that assessment with not only tens of pages of detailed requirements, but also we came out of that with a very, very strongly defined and consistent message in terms of what was our problem statement, what were we looking to achieve, what was the path by which we could go do it. And I think that was really important from the perspective of everyone knew where we were, everyone understood where we wanted to go, and then we all stacked hands, and it was all about just doing your job, right? Following through, and you always want to show up with those detailed plans, in my opinion, not just from that perspective, but from an execution point of view. It certainly has helped us not only ensure timely delivery of the capabilities. We've seen the ability to adhere to our schedule with effectively net zero deviation, but also contain costs on an implementation like this, which obviously has risks when you talk about the scope. So that's one, and I think Lori might have mentioned this in the previous conversation, but it ties all the way back to the people. It's all about people at the end of the day. The change has to make sense. It has to be well articulated. And I think it has to be very explicit in terms of, what's changing and understanding the user's point of view. Stepping into their shoes, seeing how they do it today, thinking about how they might do it tomorrow, and applying some empathy along the way. So, I think those are the two key points that I would really dial into as folks are thinking about what something like this looks for them on a go-forward basis.
Great, Andy. I think it's really interesting to hear both you and Lori mention, people are the center, and it's the focus that we have to take. So thanks for bringing that back to the forefront, and thanks for taking the time to speak with us today.
You bet. Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, hi, Andy. So there's a question tied to our word cloud. So the word cloud again was, what would be the phase describing your digital journey? So the common theme was challenging, and knowing your organization a little bit, going down a road with 20 different applications and evolving your business the way you did in a challenging time was quite impressive. So the question that the audience has asked is, how did you go about creating the business case, or at least the drivers to continue the change, or to a part on this digital transformation, again, in such a trying time? What was some of the ways in which Tallgrass approached that to make sure that you got to the outcomes that you did?
Yeah, so I think, it's about, in my opinion, it's about bringing everyone to the table and just asking the really hard and kind of pointed questions. And once we've kind of identified what are those targets, ensuring that we don't lose sight of them as we get into the challenging piece, which, Chris, I think is kind of what you're getting to. And that is, hey, we get to a point where, man, this data conversion really is tough, and what are we going to do? And we're trying to join 4 different master data sets from 4 different ERP systems, and stepping back and reminding ourselves of why we're trying to do it, how it's going to help us get to that better place. And I think it's all about having that playbook in your back pocket to remind us what we agreed on coming out of that assessment phase that we stacked hands on. It's a lot of collaboration, just keeping that goal front and center in front of us.